Shalom, and welcome to the Religion Report. This week's segment on Judaism. What are the main components of Judaism? There are 13 core beliefs on the faith. God is eternal, God is real, God is all-knowing, the Messiah will come, one must only pray to God, the words of the prophets are true, Moses' prophecies were true, and he was the greatest of all prophets. The written Torah and the oral Torah were given to Moses. There is no other Torah. The dead will be resurrected. Along with these core beliefs, Judaism is more attentive to actions rather than scrutinizing things that cannot be proven. For example, Jews would rather focus on the present rather than focusing on the meaning of life, nature of God, and heaven. They acknowledge while there are definitely an answer to these profound questions, that the human mind cannot comprehend them. Practices of the Jewish faith. The Jewish faith has numerous rituals stemming from Jewish law, specifically the Halakha. The mitzvah. The mitzvah means commandments. The word is most commonly used to describe a basic good deed, but its more specific meaning relates to the commandments. Following the mitzvah is essential to the Jewish faith. It traditionally consists of 613 commandments, although it is thought today that only 270 of them are still applicable. The kashrut/kosher. Kashrut is the Jewish law pertaining to food. Kashrut means fit and proper. Kosher is the word used to describe foods that meet the criteria outlined by the kashrut. These are some of the outlined rules. Animals. For land animals, a Jewish person can only consume any animal with hooves and that chews its cud. Any other animal is strictly forbidden. For water animals, anything with fins and scales are permitted. Any shellfish is not allowed. The guidelines for birds are unclear. Rabbis have concluded that any birds that scavenger are strictly prohibited. All foods derived from non-kosher animals are also prohibited. Moving on to the Sabbath. The Sabbath day, or Sunday, is a day for Jewish people to relax, be with family, and praise God. The purpose of this day is to symbolize the creation of earth and also the end of slavery in Egypt. There is no cooking, cutting, washing clothes, etc. Jews are allowed and in fact encouraged to play games, take a walk, and study the Torah on the Sabbath day.
The history of Judaism starts with the Old Testament. During the Bronze Age, it was the first 5 books of the Bible, with the birth of the Jewish people beginning with Abraham. He would go on to be an example of what a Jew should be. He even would have sacrificed his son for God. God guided them and even gave Moses the 10 Commandments for the people to live by. Then, the birth of an organized religion began with the kings of Israel. Through Saul, David, and Solomon, the Jews received guidance and structure. The temple was built and housed the Ark of the Covenant. It was a place where rites could be carried out. Around 920 BC, the kingdom of Israel was destroyed. The time of kings came to an end. This is where the prophets came into play. After the destruction of the temple, many Jews were sent into Babylon for exile. When the Persian king Cyrus released them from exile, many chose to stay away from the Promised Land, creating diaspora, which is living away from Israel. During the rebuilding, after the release from Babylon, the Jews grew in strength. They were able to practice their faith, and many scribes were able to explain and interpret the Bible. This era came to an end when the king of Syria destroyed the temple again and created laws that outlawed Judaism. There was a revolt by the Jewish people that is now celebrated during Hanukkah. From 1 CE to 70 CE, the rabbis came into play. They encouraged people to live a pious and ethical life, one that was filled with worship and prayer in the home and the synagogue. The time period reconstructed the Jewish life. The central idea of the temple was diminished as the focus of Jewish prayer. Synagogues started to pop up all around Palestine. Scholarly teachings were also founded during this time. From about 70 to 200 CE, there were great changes in the religion. There were many political, religious, cultural, and social changes. Most of all, during this time, Jews were finally done putting up with Roman rule. Many times the Jews rebelled, and each and every time they were brutally put down. The first revolt directly led to the final destruction of the temple, ending worship. Oftentimes, this is thought to be the largest damage to the Jewish culture to date. The state of Judaism was in turmoil. it seemed imperative to write down the beliefs of Jews in order for the religion to continue. Around 200 CE, people made the Mishnah, which is basically the collection of teachings, sayings, and interpretations of the early rabbis. The scholarly attitude continued in the generations following. They created the Talmud, which expanded upon the Mishnah. Also, Jews were allowed to become Roman citizens, but had other freedoms limited. Then was the Golden Age. These were great times for the Jews, where they were residing in Spain. They coexisted with Islamic rulers and had flourished in sciences, literature, and the Talmud. They were able to exist without much persecution. Then the Crusades occurred. The armies of Christian crusaders attacked Jews on their many conquests. When they captured Jerusalem, they not only slaughtered thousands of Muslims, but just as many Jews, and proceeded to ban them for the city. Many moved to Britain under the protection of Henry I. But during the 13th century, Jews faced many restrictions in England. Then, at the end of the century, they were all expelled from England, then France. On top of it all, the Spanish Inquisition occurred, and the Jews were expelled from there as well. On the other hand, from 1615 to 1860s, there was a period of Jewish expansion. After the Jews were allowed back into England, their rights were broadened. During this time period, Jews were also first recorded in America. By the 19th century, many countries took away their restrictions and allowed Jews the same rights as any other citizen. Now it's the 20th century. This was a time of mass immigration of Jews to countries like Britain and the U.S. in order to escape Poland and Russian regimes. Zionism also came into creation. It was the aim to create a Jewish state. They believed that the only way to have safety in the world was to have their own state. Following the First World War, the British government worked with the Jews to make a permanent arrangement. The Holocaust by Nazi Germany resulted in 6 million Jewish deaths and reshaped Jewish thinking. They were confused as to why their God would let this happen to his chosen people. Finally, the Zionist movement achieved its goal with the creation of the State of Israel in 1948.
Rituals of the Jewish religion. The bar/bat mitzvah is when Jewish boys turn 13, and they are now expected to obey all the commandments. This landmark in a Jew's life enables them to lead religious services, count towards a minyan, enter contracts, and marry. At a bar mitzvah, it takes place in the very next Sabbath service after the boy's birthday. At this service, the boy must recite the Aliyah, which is the benediction over the Torah reading, recite the Haftarah, which is the selection from the prophets, read a Torah portion, lead service or prayers. Along with all this, the boy must make a short speech thanking God. Bat mitzvahs, which are the ceremonies for women, are not observed in the Orthodox or Hasidic cultures, as women don't participate in services. Circumcision is performed when a boy is 8 days old. Circumcision was put into place in Genesis and is an outward sign of a man's participation in Israel's covenant with the God of Israel, as well as a sign that the Jewish people will perpetuate through him. It is a very, very important ritual in the Jewish community. It is so important that it may be done on the Sabbath, a day when no blood is supposed to be drawn. Weddings. Jewish weddings consist of 2 separate ceremonies, which used to be held separately but in the modern day are performed together. Kiddushin is the first day of the betrothal ceremony. Kiddushin means sanctification. In this part of the ceremony, the bride circles the groom and blessings are read. Rings, like normal ceremonies, are exchanged with a declaration sealing the deal. Nisuin, meaning elevation, is where the two stand under a canopy, which is supposed to symbolize a home. They recite 7 blessings and drink wine. The groom breaks glass with his foot, a symbol of the destruction of the temple. Now for some jargon used by Jews across the world. Aliyah is reading from Torah during services. Ark is where the Torah scrolls are kept in each temple. The Brit Milah is the covenant of circumcision. Chai is the living or life. G-D is a way of writing God to avoid risk of sin, of defacing or erasing the name. Gentiles are non-Jews. Hebrew is the language of the Torah. Mazel Tov is good luck or congratulations. Oy vey is an explanation of grief. Shalom is a greeting or deep peace.
Catholicism and Judaism, while closely related, are definitely unique and distinctive. First things first, Catholicism and all forms of Christianity stem from Judaism, with early history being the same. But once the split occurred, this is where the similarities became apparent. In terms of God, both religions are monotheistic and believe in the same exact God. Except Jews don't hold the Trinitarian belief. They believe that God is one. Catholics, on the other hand, believe that the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit are all parts of one whole God. Judaism does not believe that the separation is possible, and Jews have not decided on the nature of God beyond him being one entity. Free will and original sin. Catholicism believes that they were only saved by Jesus, inherently born bad, and do not have the power to remove sin by themselves. Whereas Judaism teaches that humans are not born of good or evil, but have the free moral will to choose good over evil. Jews do not believe that humans are helpless to sin, and both religions believe in a variation of free will. Jews have not come up with a clear set of beliefs on the nature of heaven and hell. They believe that the afterlife will reflect their ethical behaviors on earth, but they don't believe in eternal damnation due to the fact that God is all-merciful. You don't have to be a Jew in order to go to heaven, but just lead an ethical life. Catholics believe that you must be baptized and the souls must be free of guilt and punishment. Admittance into heaven is only given by Jesus and God. There is also a purgatory where the souls are purified in order to get into heaven.
Alright, we're going to start with some don'ts. First, don't try to jump to conclusions about the Torah or Bible. Second, when talking about the faith or Torah, keep it brief. It shows signs of wisdom and how prepared you are. Third, Jews are not supposed to cook at night. They're supposed to have hot foods prepared the night before. And now to some famous people. We have Woody Allen, Natalie Portman, Ben Stiller, Harrison Ford, Adam Sandler, Jack Black, and Seth Rogen. And some fun facts. The most important text about the Jewish faith are its laws, and it's called the Halakha. And in the Jewish faith, God is Yahweh. And there are several different sections of the Jewish faith called Orthodox Judaism and Hasidic Judaism, and many more. The most important religious practice is the 613 commandments of the Jewish faith that were created by Moses.